Hello and welcome. This is Fireworks. According to the Nigeria Telecommunications Commission, the country's telecom subscriber base is estimated at 150.66 million, down from 151.02 million active phone lines in August 2015. Now, the number declined in September following the deactivation of unregistered SIMs as directed by the regulator. Now, are Nigerians getting their fair share of this commonwealth, and what's the regulator doing? What are its challenges in its efforts to seeing that Nigerians indeed enjoy this commonwealth? These are some of the points I'll be exploring on the program today as I bid you welcome. Let's take a short break during which you usually find out who my guest is. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. Today I have with me the Honorable Minister of Communications, Mr. Adebayo Shittu, Barrister Adebayo Shittu. Thank you for your time on the program, sir.
It's my pleasure being here.
Okay.
Interestingly, I don't shake hands with other people's wives.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be accused of committing torture.
Understandable, sir. Understandable. We're in a multicultural, multi-religious society.
Again.
Now, let's start off by rewinding a bit to the past. In recent times, in the most recent times, not very recent, by the way, the NCC has come out to say that there has been an agreement on how the MTN fine, which was topical last year, would be paid. Can you give us clarity on that? What were the terms? What's the agreement?
To start with, I was not part of the negotiations. I think the public should get this very clear, because there had been insinuations arising from a wrong perception that I perhaps, headed the negotiating team. For the records, before this government came on board, there had been a law saying that every SIM card must be registered in terms of the details of the users of those lines. And that for everyone that is not registered but is in active service, there is a fine of 200,000. Nobody at that time could have imagined that one of the operators would be in default of up to 5.2 million lines being active in the Nigerian space without having been registered. Of course, the implication of not being registered is that criminals can use this to extort money, to engage in, kidnapping, and then using those lines, to get people to pay illegal and unlawful fees.
And fueling insurgency, which is a concern of the president.
Without, their identities being traced. So when the new board, I guess the problem must have been on for a long time before this government came on board. But when the current NCC executive vice chairman came on board, he discovered that MTN, of all operators, had been in default of up to 5.2 million lines, and he raised the alarm, and in consonance with the constitutional responsibilities of NCC, imposed a fine of 200,000 naira in 5.2 places. Of course, it became a scandal because it was such a huge fine. If you added, the cost of the fine with
200,000 by 5 million.
I mean, it went into over $1 trillion naira, and they had to pay. Of course, in the history of the entire world, there has never been a fine of that magnitude, whether in the court processes or out of court process. It never happened. So it was a big issue. Everybody...
Honorable Minister, I understand that you would be defensive. That's why I emphasized on the words, most recent. About a few months ago, late last year, the NCC released a statement saying both sides have now agreed that the company, the service provider, should pay just 330 billion naira down from the 780 million naira that it was initially reduced to. Are you aware of this, sir?
Of
and
course,
how true
in my
is this?
position as a Minister of Communications, I must be aware.
So are you party to this round of negotiation?
Let me say this. I think I should not overlook the fact that you said you expected that I will be defensive. I don't know what that implies.
No, because you had emphasized on the fact that you weren't party to the initial negotiations.
I was never party at any point in time.
Even up to this point?
Even up to I didn't need constitutionally.
330 billion
I didn't
naira.
need to be involved in it
But
because
you're aware of this
constitutional.
one?
Of course, I'll be aware because when NCC went to court, it also sued me as Minister of Communications because NCC is under my, supervisory responsibility. So it sued me. So necessarily, I must get all the facts. I must also prepare for a defense in court of the issues. And in any case, I was also briefed by NCC.
So you do not agree with this new figure, 330 billion?
Why would I not agree when Mr. President, who appointed me, who appointed the NCC leadership, has taken a decision in the interest of Nigeria?
And what's that decision? And
that decision was, number one, in consonance with the fact that when it happened and the fine was imposed, NCC did 4 things, and I have repeated these times to that number. It agreed that it was in default to the tune of 5.2 million. It also apologized. Thirdly, it gave a commitment never to allow any line to be active without pre-registration. And fourthly, it asks for remission of, substantial part of the fine. When it happened, and then the fine was imposed, and then they came up with this, it was the responsibility of Mr. President to take a decision in the national interest. And so the decision was that of Mr. President, and not that of either the Minister of Communications or
the NCC.
The NCC.
So it was simply NCC's duty to communicate Mr. President's decision
to make all the facts
to
available,
the public.
Exactly, to make all the the facts available to Mr. President, to enable Mr. President to take the right decision. Again, having regard to the fact that it had become an international issue, the international community was alarmed. Of course, they didn't imagine that law.
The visit by the President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma.
He applied. Of course, the MTN is a South African originated company. Today, MTN Nigeria is a Nigerian company, but MTN originated from South Africa. In any case, not only the South African government was involved, in fact, the international community, particularly the investing public, particularly from foreign lands, they were all alarmed because a lot of things were involved. Number one, the banking sector would be impacted one way or the other. Number two, the investing public will be impacted one way or the other. Number three, the jobs market will be involved, and also the service market. And Mr. President took the decision that he felt was in the best interest of Nigeria by reducing the fine. So that decision
further down to 330 billion naira. Now let's go back a bit more in the interest of what could possibly happen in the future. Now, how come that as supervising minister presiding over the Nigeria Communications Commission, which is under your ministry, the NCC, or perhaps the Justice Minister, along with the Accountant General of the Federation, concluded negotiations with the airing company to reduce the fine and make the airing company commit to pay 50 billion naira, 6% of the entire fine. And they even decided to open an account called recovery account without your knowledge.
You see, we live by rules, not by misconceptions, not by wishes, not by what people ignorantly ascribe to be the status quo on situations. The NCC, there's what is called the NCC Act, which defines the responsibilities of the NCC management and also define the responsibility of a minister in charge of supervision of NCC. One thing which a lot of members of the public do not know was that NCC had been in existence before the Ministry of Communications was established. So the law had been there, the law had not been, amended, and the law did not say that in areas of general operations that NCC had to be referring to the Minister of Communications or whoever minister is supervising over it.
It didn't have to.
It didn't.
It didn't need to.
They didn't need to inform me because my supervisionary, responsibility is limited to general policy formulation, not regulatory authority. You have to distinguish these two. So if it didn't require my consensual consultation, I would not force it that they have to, consult with me. But I got involved because in the wisdom or otherwise of MTN, when they were filing an action, they brought me in as a co-defendant, along with the Minister of, of Justice, along with NCC and Nigeria as a whole. And to that extent, I have to also, file a defense, to the action, the claim of MTN at that time. But we knew even at that time that MTN filed the action only to buy time because there was no way from records that they could, satisfy the payment of the fine within a month or so.
Or even within a year. Or
even within a year, perhaps. So in order to buy time, they went to court, and then we went to meet them in court, and after the 31st deadline, or 31st December deadline had expired, perhaps they found out that there was no way they could win the case, either in the court, in the judicial process, or in the public court. And so they initiated a process of an out-of-court settlement. In such situations, the normal person who would be approached is the Attorney General, who is the Chief Legal Officer of Nigeria. Not even NCC at that time. And the Attorney General did what was right by saying, look, if you say you want an out-of-court settlement, before we even talk to you, you must show an act of good faith and of commitment to the process of out-of-court settlement. And that was how the issue of, a down payment of 50 billion, came up. So
why weren't you carried along?
Why must I be carried along? Did the law say that
the Minister of Communication?
You see, you should behave and act in consonance with the existing law. Is one thing which we will ascribe to the Nigerian factor. For this, I'm aware.
Nigerian factor, or the service providers are not doing what they ought to do, in spite of the fact that a company has paid a humongous sum in the form of a fine.
Yes, it's not about MTN alone. Virtually all the
service providers.
And what I have witnessed, observed, and which gives me a lot of concern, and for which we have not yet, found a solution, is the fact that Nigerians buy cards and register in proxy.
All right. You're watching Fireworks, and I've been talking with the Honorable Minister of Communication, Barrister Adebayo Shittu. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more questions for him. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. In the last half hour, I've been talking with the Honorable Minister of Communications, Barrister Adebayo Shittu, and we looked sufficiently at the MTN fine and matters arising. Now we are progressing. This time around, we want to look at the concern of infrastructure development in the communications industry. Thank you for your time, sir. And
it's my pleasure.
Your patience. Now, are you concerned, Honorable Minister, that there is very little investment, especially from the companies that are not particularly domiciled here in Nigeria, or better put, they are not companies originating from Nigeria. There's very little investment in infrastructure in the country. Does it worry you, especially, for this Commonwealth that was talked about earlier for the Nigerian people?
Naturally, it must worry me, and I feel worried, and, I believe I've been doing my best to attract foreign direct investment in that sector. Right now, we have well over $10 billion in infrastructure, particularly through direct foreign investment into the country in that sector. But it is not enough because Nigeria is such a huge country with 180 million plus people scattered, all over the 36 states of the country. We certainly need more investment. Ordinarily, if Nigerians had money, and for those, people who have money really, we know that the problem has been that people prefer to, just put their money in banks and make cheap money rather than, in enterprises. Because of this, we've been inviting all that we can invite from all over the world. We've invited companies from China, from Korea, from the UK, from the Nordic countries, of Northern Europe, and we are hoping that in this new year we would have, a lot of investments coming in.
And on what is contained in the rule books as you negotiate partnerships with this foreign partners? What's contained in the rule books such that the expatriate quota is not breached, such that you ensure that they invest in structural development here in Nigeria?
Let me say this for the records. It is often said that government has no business in business. It is not the business of government to enter into partnerships with foreign investors. All that government is concerned with is preparing and ensuring an enabling environment for businesses to grow, for investments to come in and all of that. So we have been doing that by, for instance, ensuring that our laws, about ease of business is improved upon. Our laws about investment climate is improved upon. That the banking sector itself, is, made more reliable and more considered. Unfortunately, because of the parlor state of our Naira, particularly the fact that, the value of Naira has gone down abysmally, very low. That creates a lot of problem on one hand. On the other, it is also a boost for, foreign direct investors to come in, because when they are bringing in money now, whatever little money they bring, in terms of Naira, it's quantum. So we are working very hard at encouraging both Nigerians and foreigners to come in. If they come in, of course, the laws are there, the laws about partnership and so on. And more often than not, because most Nigerians are not interested in enterprising, investments. They are more interested in putting money in banks or even hiding money, in all sorts of, places, rather than engaging in enterprises. So we continue to work hard and pray that things will improve.
But rarely, when you create the enabling environment and then you stand back, your hands off, saying at that level that government's business is not in business.
No, you know very well
years later, as we see today, the expatriates or the investing companies begin to breach the laws. Well, the top positions are then handed over to the expatriates at the expense of the indigents.
That's something which relates to labor laws. It's not about my constituency as a Minister of Communications. All that we do is to ensure that we get investments to come in. We have our labor laws, you have our Minister of Labor, we have the labor unions and all of that, whose concern and whose responsibility is to ensure that Nigerian workers and the investing public within Nigeria are not cheated.
But Honorable Minister, you also acknowledge that you can't give what you don't have.
Yes.
Is the government also preparing, to train youths to acquire the requisite skill that can be used to drive this sector, such that the investing companies would have to think twice before importing skill from outside when it has ready skill that can provide the service required to develop the sector?
Yes, I think government has been doing that. Now, those companies which bring in foreign, skilled personnel do so more often than not when it is they coming to invest, bringing their money. I mean, they won't just post their money to Nigeria. They must come with the money. They must establish the technology that they want to establish. Perhaps in some of these areas, we may not have the requisite skill. But government has a policy of discouraging, foreign, you know, they bring in just, you know, unilaterally, just a foreign staff. And in any case, I am saying this from experience. I mean, this might, you know, appear distasteful to many people, but I have seen from experience. Perhaps if I was not minister of the communications, I would not have seen what I know now. In many of our universities, computer studies are offered. But we do know that many of these universities which offer computer studies, for instance, hardly have computer sets for which citizens or youth are trained. The consequence or result of this is people come out with degrees in computer studies. They are employed or engaged in companies of ICT, and you have to start teaching them.
And they're ill-equipped.
They're ill-equipped. And it is for that reason that this administration in the Ministry of Communications is working towards establishing an ICT university, which will be a partnership between the federal government of Nigeria and foreign companies in the ICT, so that for once we have one institution where you can be sure that when you graduate, you are ready for the market.
Now, Honorable Minister, Nigerians will not forgive me if I don't touch this area. Tariff increase amidst drop calls, amidst poor network services for data use, a myriad of them. I can't immediately recall all of them. So how justifiable is a tariff increase amongst the service that still leaves very much to be desired?
Well, it is a very difficult question, but because I am Adebayo Shittu, I will answer the question. If you have, you know, a minister who is not confident of himself, he perhaps would try to evade it. The truth must be said. And what is the truth? Today, in the last 3 years, my records show that the last supposed increase in floor plan, tariff floor plan, as it is you know, popularly called, was suspended 3 years ago. And what happened about it? As a matter of fact, if you allow some of these companies, they would even make it free, from my records. And they make it free so that smaller companies can be pushed out of the market, so that they become monopolies and later on visit Nigerians with what monopolies all over the world used to do. So it is the responsibility of NCC to create a balance among the companies. And what is the balance? In association, you know, having met with, you know, the companies which were feeling the heat of the costs, subsisting costs, which they considered unsustainable, because again they have foreign components that they have to service. So they came up to say that, look, what was up, you know, now this rate we cannot sustain it. If it continues, we cannot even provide, you know, we cannot guarantee quality service in this area.
But there's a huge market. It's difficult to believe, to even imagine. There's a huge market.
Well, we are not in their business.
Worth $19 billion by 2019? By
way of investment. And you know very well, if you invest that amount of money, you are expected to make money out of it. In SMS, you know, text messages in Nigeria, they cost 5 naira. Some will even charge only 4 naira. If you go to Benin Republic there, you pay 15 naira. 5 naira.
But in other African countries as well, what they pay for for data tariff is significantly lower than what is paid here in Nigeria.
Give an evidence
in South Africa, for instance, what they pay, I don't know how to quantify it in terms of the naira, but what they pay for tariff, data tariff especially, is half of what Nigerians pay.
Well, I would not defend that, but I would want to tell you, I want to ask you this question. That 5 naira we pay for SMS, if you reduce that to dollar, how much is it?
A few cents.
How much cents? It will not be up to 50 cents. It will not even be up to 25 cents. It will be 0.0 something cent. You see, we must be fair.
But is it also a possibility that
And in any case, in that South Africa you are talking of.
A tariff
In
regime
South
here
Africa,
in Nigeria,
you are talking
comparable to
of
Western
the government
countries.
guarantees electricity 24/7. So the GSM company will not have to be spending extra money to provide electricity for themselves.
South Africa has had a fair share of electricity challenges in the last 1 year.
Well, in the last 1 year?
In the last 2 years.
For how long has Nigeria had this same challenge? You have to compare things. You see, we must be fair.
But can the telecoms companies also come up with a tariff regime whereby Nigerians pay predictably something over a period of 6 months, 1 year, as it is done in Western countries?
The money they
then
take,
their profit is also predictable.
The money is not coming into government coffers. Ours is to provide an enabling environment for them to operate. We must also recall or remind ourselves, time was when we relied only on NITEL, and we knew the harrows we were going through. So, you see, it is better you get good service and pay something than have the money and have a situation where the service is not even available.
But can you even describe the current service as good?
It is not good, not excellent. It is not excellent. But Nigerians have something to use. We must appreciate that. It is not the same as not having this service. And we must not create a situation that these services will no more be available to Nigerians. I mean, that's the truth we must have to face. You cannot eat omelets without breaking egg. So if somebody now starts complaining that, why are you breaking egg? Of course, the person does not want to eat omelets.
All right. That will be a hard compromise, and this is where we'll drop the anchor. Well, the usual bitter pill that Nigerians have to swallow. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for your time and thoughts on the program today. That's how it's been on Fireworks today. You've come up close with the Honourable Minister and you've had a deeper understanding of what the issues are, especially in the telecoms industry in Nigeria. Join me again same time next week when I bring you another interesting edition of the program. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now. Thank you, sir.